our only interactions with each other have been on a level playing field, neutral ground, right? We had never interacted with each other before in either of our kind of, home spaces. And so it definitely was a situation where he had never seen me in that position where someone's talking to me in that way. And I think there was also a level of anxiety for him of how is she going to react.
Wagwan people, and welcome to the Callaloo and Collagrees podcast, where we're here to celebrate culture, real talk, and humor, sharing some experiences from the Caribbean and African American perspective. My name's Omar. I'm here with my wife, Aaliyah, and our good friends, Alicia and Brandon. And today, we're going into episode 2. It's my turn to kick things off, and we're going to talk about On My Mama. Little dance for that. Shout out to Victoria Monet. Culture, expectations, and big conversations. So we're going to talk about grabbing a plate, hopefully a plate that someone made for you.
Oh, Lord.
And we're going to get into what happens when we meet the mother-in-law, when language becomes a barrier, and when family traditions go head to head. So, Leah, I think we should start this off.
Okay.
Sounds personal.
This was a time. Let me tell you, the plate piece, that I know that that makes it breathe a bit, I coming into my family again, we I never saw my family so big in that moment, and until introducing you to them. What was that like for you?
No, I mean, I think so. A little bit of backstory. I was not unfamiliar with Caribbean culture. Growing up in New York, Brandon can attest to this, Long Island, there's a lot of diversity. I went to a small school where it was mostly Caribbean culture. And through that experience, the one thing that I determined was that marrying a Jamaican man was not for me. And
what was you want to tell the audience why you said you didn't want to marry Jamaican?
The reason was because what I had learned from my friendships and from my community was that there was a very traditional mindset about the role of a wife and the types of things that she should be doing. And I am not a traditional person. And so
that was a nice way. Let me tell you what she really said. She said y'all trying to have me out here barefoot and pregnant. Ooh. That is what she said to me.
Oh, not the barefoot. Not the barefoot.
Let's talk about it.
If the lack of shoes fit, I guess. But thankfully, in me meeting Omar, he proved to be a very modern gentleman with sensibilities around partnership and equality and equity and all of the big, wonderful things, and wanting me to have a bold life where I follow my passions and we bounce off of each other.
While wearing shoes.
Shoes are important, yeah.
Not barefoot.
So,
hey, some traditions got to be kept,
So that was great. I loved that. I loved that for me. I loved that for us. And when we met each other's families, I think the reality of that cultural distinction kind of set in. And I definitely think my experience was one that was a bit of a shock in terms of how much in Caribbean culture men are catered to and cultivated, and how much sons are put on a pedestal. And the expectations around even my simple interactions with Omar, I once was corrected because we were at the mall, Omar wanted to go left, and I said, no, I looked at the map and the store's to the right, and I was told, shh. Oh. Omar knows what he's doing.
Oh, okay.
Sit up.
And that
lock
was
off your mouth.
Lock off your mouth.
Oh, the lock off.
It was a shocker. I don't think I've ever been told to be
You've never been
silent while a
silenced
man
before.
speaks.
Shoot, I was in shock. I was there like, I was like, shoot.
Because
Like,
also
I
think
actually don't know where
I
we're
was-
going.
but also like think about it this way, right? Like our only interactions with each other have been on a level playing field, neutral ground, right? We had never interacted with each other before in either of our kind of, home spaces. And so it definitely was a situation where he had never seen me in that position
Oh.
where someone's talking to me in that way. And I think there was also a level of anxiety for him of how is
Like,
she gonna
what are they gonna
react?
say?
Yeah, how is she gonna react to this situation, knowing like my preferences and my background and my
That is-
thoughts on like, me being a womanist. So for sure, I think that there was some culture clashes.
Not the she part got me. I was what was your reaction?
I think I was shocked. I just was like, and then I was like, well, it's okay. He's fine with me telling him my opinion.
Now you're back talking. Talking back.
Oh, the patois came out. Oh,
Thankfully it didn't erupt into a long extensive conversation. Omar obviously like played a major role, I think, in just being my advocate and really making sure that I felt comfortable and that he was very upfront and honest about the role that he felt that I needed to play in his life, rather than, kind of letting that really be determined by how he was brought up or how his family members were brought up. He very much took the lead in that and asserting my place as just being a autonomous person who can who can have opinions and who can correct him if he's wrong or hold him accountable if he's wrong.
And over time, be barefoot and pregnant.
I know.
She's
There
gonna
we
be
go.
there with her
There
shoes
we
on.
go. There it is.
Oh,
She's gotta
wow.
have the shoes on.
There it is.
She's gotta have the shoes on.
But
There it is.
I guess Alicia, like, I mean, and Brandon, I would love to hear from you. Like, was there similar, like, now it's the other way around, right? You're the male in that dynamic, right? Like, what was that?
No, I mean, personally, the first big thing I think was my cousin's pool party cookout.
The pool.
You know, it was huge,
It's a time.
whole rack of people. Great time. Shout out to my cousin for the great time.
We love you, C. We love you, C.
And she came, and it was very welcoming. They all knew about Alicia because that was the first time meeting my dad's side of the family, really.
We'll talk about what his dad said,
but he was welcoming. He was very welcoming.
He was very welcoming.
And it was more like, just jump in. They, a lot of times they said, look, Brandon co-signs you, have a good time, be merry. It was a joyous celebration. So it wasn't that pressure, I think.
It wasn't at all. In fact, like his cousin also married a woman that's Jamaican. She's like, I love you, girl. But for his family, it was very welcoming. In fact, I think Brandon makes my plate. Like I don't ever recall like intentionally. We help each other, but there was never like a moment where I felt like, like
there's this like gender role obligation,
right? Yeah,
that's
for sure,
expected based on culture.
And I would even say, I mean, my household was a little bit different. My father worked most of my childhood. My father was away at work. He worked on a cruise ship, and my mother played both roles, right? Until he came home for vacation. So I didn't even see that growing up. Although when my dad is home, I think he has that expectation that someone's gonna make him a plate.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And I've benefited. I'm gonna say benefited of having, because you mentioned about that the man, the woman mostly caters to the man. And when I met Alicia's parents, it was very welcoming, very okay.
Absolutely.
You sit down, if Alicia didn't make the plate, they would kind of say, "Make Brandon's plate," and I'm going to
get to him.
He got two
and I'm not saying anything. I'm just trying to receive. But within that story, if I could tell the food story.
Oh, I mean, yeah, for sure.
So, love my mother-in-law. Shout out to my mother-in-law.
We love my mother-in-law.
She's the best.
And my mother-in-law.
We love her too. Love her.
But I did the way I met her. I literally met her without ever meeting her, but planning a surprise for Alicia to come on, because Alicia's big on traditions, which we'll get into another show. But she loves Thanksgiving, and I love Thanksgiving, but we'll get there later. So we did a surprise. So I had to plan it with her mother. And
was this when you flew to Miami
when I
and
flew
I
to
was like
Miami,
big mad that
she was
you
big
weren't
mad
coming with me to begin with?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I surprised her, and I surprised Alicia. It's a whole great thing. Alicia
He
can't
brought me
believe it.
beef patties.
You know,
Yeah, he surprised me and like literally brought me beef patties. You would have thought he gave me $1 million.
because I know that's one of her favorite things. Gotta listen, fellas. Gotta listen. So, but then the funny part was, you know, in the terms of culture, you know, my mother-in-law wanted to really make me happy and make, you know, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna search over some collard greens."
So that lady went to every store in South Florida to find collard greens for this man.
Because you know, you're African American, you love collard greens. It was really not in a negative way. It was really like in a, hey, I'm genuinely
trying to make you feel at home.
It's Thanksgiving,
but then I'm like, no, I actually love oxtails, rice, and you know, I love all that stuff. You know, so Alicia's like, you know, he likes collard greens, but not like to go crazy. But but I say like definitely her first intro to the family. It was a celebration time, and it was welcoming. And then for me, it was you know, I've embraced because again, I was like, yeah, I can make my own plate, but it was like, oh no, Brett, sit down. You know, so I was learning. But it was a side
conversation in the kitchen. Go make him plate.
Yeah.
You were liking the royal treatment,
right?
You know, I was embracing the culture.
Oh, you were embracing the culture.
I have to. Who am I?
Nice.
Who am I to? You know,
I love that for y'all.
You know,
it don't work that way on other end.
Yeah, you know, that's a beautiful little integration there. You know, that's a beautiful. But I think it's interesting too. You know, because like, I mean, coming into your family, right? I think I think it was Thanksgiving too. Was the first time, and you know, I got the cousins. Y'all, you know which cousins I'm talking about. That came to try to grill me, right? You know, I came there.
Gotta be vetted.
Aaliyah has a whole village, though.
Like
it was
a massive.
They run deep. I will emphasize that at our wedding, we had my family's at one table. Okay, we had 250 people. My family's at one table. Let me just put that out there.
It was mostly my family.
Let me just put that out there for everyone. But you know, it was that initial vetting. It was an initial. I mean, actually, now I think about it, technically, it started with your dad. You remember? Mm-hmm. We went to
we went out to eat.
And stuff. You know, but it's like the initial interview process, and I will one of the highlights I remember was like first year in our relationship, you know, I think we were at IHOP I'm sorry, we were at IHOP. We were at the jazz festival, and I will never forget, you know, Aaliyah's mom comes up to me. He's like, "Oh my God, Omar, I'm so glad that you're here." You know, and like, you know, we do this every year, stuff like that. So, you know, you'll be coming along, provided that you're still here. Oh. Yeah, I told it. I said it. I said it.
I mean, but that's, I ain't gonna lie, that's how we all felt. Like, let's see if you stick around. Right. Because we love Aaliyah.
No, but I think it was like kind of coming into that, and it was a little weird to me because, you know, I was always questioning Aaliyah to be like, you know, I mean, everything was just so accepting. Everything was just so rooted in stuff, right? But you know, to the other end, right? Something I sometimes didn't give my family enough credit for was, you know, when they tried to integrate, you know, coming to Jamaica, to Florida, right, and thinking about integration into families, right, and the culture, you know, to Aaliyah, you know, she was like a phenomenon, like, you know, this weird. Brandon, you talked about the oxtail story. You know, I remember, you know, family members being like, we had a Jamaican restaurant being like, you know, this is oxtail, this is rice and peas, you know, and Aaliyah's just like,
just get chicken.
Get chicken.
I was told just get chicken because that's what you know. That's what you know.
That's what you know, you know. But
and again, I grew up in New York.
It literally probably genuinely,
I grew up eating Jamaican food my whole life.
It probably was truly genuine. Like, no offense. I don't think it was.
No, it was very much like a, you know, I want to make sure you have a good experience at this restaurant.
But only eat the chicken.
Like, just eat this because safe. Like that's something familiar.
Was it curry or brown stew?
It was curry.
That's not safe.
I mean, but like
curry could be dangerous.
But like I went straight for the oxtail because that's my favorite. So you know, curry. And here we are. So
yeah, you made it. But like, just to even think about family and like acceptance, Brandon's family reunions. So as a West Indian person, I'm not going to say West Indians don't have family reunions because they do. They're typically around funerals and weddings. I personally have never like experienced like a formal family reunion where you get the shirt and everything. I believe that does happen in some families, but Brandon's family reunions, it's like a convention. Like, and the first time going to one, I was like, yo, how many of y'all are there?
Was that the one that we planned or no?
No, I don't remember. There's so many of them because they happen quite frequently.
Every
but
other year.
like even in those settings, like I'm like, oh my God, they're like, oh hey cuz. I'm like, hey girl, I don't know your name. But it's just amazing how even, something as formalized as like family reunions and those types of gatherings, it does kind of immerse you into one's family. You get to see the full dynamics. And I'm actually a little obsessed with their family reunions because I even think for me, like, my family is very small. It's me, my mom, my dad, my sister, and Brandon and I and our son, my nuclear family. And then everyone else is kind of spread out. Typical West Indian. We got family in London, Canada, Jamaica, up the road, around the corner. But even to just see family in a very different way and then feel that acceptance. Yeah. And like for me, again, it's such a beautiful thing.
And just real on the family tip, being with Alicia, literally, it made me have to remember, that she moved from, Jamaica to Florida and then Florida to New York, where she was literally by herself without the nucleus for a long time.
Yeah.
So it made me want to just have more empathy to her for that. And then when she is talking about like, man, you get these family, you get to see a whole bunch of your family every other year, like that's amazing.
I gotta get on a plane and go see mine.
So it also made me even have more appreciation for the history of our family reunions and Alicia, being with Alicia has made me just value the importance of family as a whole.
I think we underestimate, honestly, like how big of a adjustment that can be, right? And blending the cultures. Like, I mean, you guys almost a century together, right?
Why make it sound so long?
Almost a decade.
We're nearing we're a little over the decade, right? Just
not a
baby
century.
decade, but
it's
they being rooted. Y'all was in the 20th and the 21st century, right? I'm just putting it out there. That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? But like,
I tell you, you don't need enemies or friends like that.
So were we.
We've been together
we were
for centuries.
It's fine.
Fair. But the big thing, and Aaliyah, you talked about it a little bit earlier, just kind of like staying rooted and like what did you guys feel like you had to? Was there anything you felt like you needed to like shift, right, to stay kind of, meet expectations, right? Because obviously it's about you guys, it's about us, right? But what were the things that you felt like maybe I need to do a little bit more of, right? Like maybe for you, Leah, did you feel like you need to get more on my plates? What was did that
I never
provoke
felt like
something
I
in
needed
you?
to get more you know the answer to that one, girl. No. Short answer, no. Long answer is it was different for me because I went from coming out of environments where I was entirely comfortable with just knowing everything, like knowing the social cues, knowing like the subtleties of when someone's happy, when they're not, when something's needed, when I should help, how I should help, like where to step in. And you know this about me from a family perspective, I'm the person who's like, let me get that for you. Let me put this together. Let me arrange this table. Let me help you clean this up. And you both know this from even like a social community perspective. I'm that same person. I show up like I'm not sitting down at an event. I'm helping out. I'm finding out where I'm needed.
Appreciate y'all too for helping out.
Anytime. Like but that's what we do, right? And so going into his spaces was like, whoa, like
have a seat.
I don't know what my purpose is here.
Interesting.
Like I have no clue like what's appropriate. Like if I pick something up, am I being rude because I picked something up? Like, if whoever's not familiar with Jamaican culture, you start sweeping with people in the house.
Time to
It's offensive. It is so offensive because it cues that people need to leave. I did not grow up like that. I grew up like if I picked up a broom at a friend's house and started sweeping because something was like not all neat, they'd be like, "Oh my goodness, Aaliyah is so helpful and she's so great," and all this stuff. And so there's all these like little tiny things and nuances where I'm like, dang, I don't know if like, should I ask them if they're done with that? Do I have to finish this? Do I have to like, I don't know, and so yeah, it was definitely a moment of I got to take a step back and just kind of help let Omar guide me through this experience.
I mean, I will say West Indians though, we don't really show empathy and love well, and we don't talk about our feelings, and so maybe a little bit of that is probably them, wanting you to do the things but not being able, they don't show it well. Brandon he's terrified of a Jamaican restaurant, actually. So
not terrified.
he'll go and we have a funny saying where if they don't look mean and the food's not good, but he'll go in there and be like, "Oh, like I don't want to talk to her. She looked mean." I'm like, "No, she just said she loved you. Like, you want extra gravy? You don't have to pay for it." But I think our demeanor too, because look, just like African Americans in America, we've been through some things, right? And I think we just wear it on our face, and we don't know how to communicate well, and we don't show our feelings.
I bought her a mug. It says, "I'm not." What does it say? I'm not yelling. I'm Jamaican.
He has that same mug.
Do you have that mug?
I sure do.
We're gonna break those out one day.
Yeah. We gotta.
It's like, I'm not yelling. I'm speaking passionately. Huh?
I mean, what? We struggle, and sometimes it makes it awkward though for the person that comes in that's so well at communicating and showing their feelings and being affectionate. We're not, unfortunately, very affectionate, outwardly affectionate people.
You do a great job, though.
But
you're doing good.
I'm learning.
You're doing good.
I think though that outward affection, it comes in a lot of I say acts of service, right? Because Aaliyah was talking about a bit of finding her purpose in that dynamic, right? And I think sometimes I would say in our culture we're very big on okay, that's Aaliyah, that's Omar's wife, right? And it's the source of what surrounds being Omar's wife, right? And so they're orienting you to perform in that way, do things in that way, show up in that way, right? And through that, it's a little bit of that appreciation is shown to say, hey, this is my cultural connection to you through this Omar, right? I definitely think there was opportunities where we could have come out of that and been like, oh, you know what, let's try and breach a little bit, right? But I think it's like what we go back to earlier when we said the whole thing about just even coming to America, doing that bridge, right? It's like you feel like there's no access point. Sometimes I'm growing up in Florida, I'm like, did it shield me too much? Did it, not allow for more of those opportunities to try and engage and be in other cultures and stuff? So, I think that's been kind of my takeaway with where we're not feeling where we don't express so much of that emotionality, feeling like we are also kind of feeling a little bit lost in this big world too,
Absolutely. And it's so funny you say that, because I thought about that a couple of days ago. I was like, dang, they really packed a bag and literally just moved into this big place where things are complicated, right? And there's no straight path to anything. And I'm proud of the progress we've made as a people. Yeah. But I'm also that must have been a lot.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. And I think that does kind of call back to what you were saying too, just about, there is a level of pride there. And sometimes when you're coming into that environment, I think, you both kind of describe Brandon and I's family dynamics as being very welcoming, very open. I think part of that is, there's always this level of curiosity about, your culture, wanting to learn about it, all of these things, but not coming from the same type of pride because our history is different.
Yeah.
Versus coming into your spaces, there's so much pride that it's almost like this experience of almost being asked to assimilate, with the exception of things trying to be catered to in a way of oh, let me go get collard greens for you for Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
So I think you end up in a position where it's do you have to choose? Do you have to very early in your relationship make a decision of okay, well, am I gonna just be a Kalaloo person when I'm with Omar's family, or do I still say no, this is my culture and this is what I like? And do I try to expose them to those things as well? And vice versa, right? Where do we kind of make those meetings of cultures and that exposure there?
I mean, I think we've naturally done it where it's just, again, we're thoughtful about our experience, and then have a kid. We have a son, he's 1. and you're even like thinking about how he's, you know, being raised and the things that he's exposed to, like that in itself is complicated because you don't want to over index on like one side, like, oh, you know, you don't want to expose him to like everything Jamaican and then he's not connected with his African American side. I love to actually say that our son is a little bit of reggae and soul because he's 50-50 reggae and he's 50-50 soul. And it's like, that's even, I'm doing the mental work to like process, like, how do we like even show up for our child so that he knows that he is from these two amazing cultures, and certainly leaving behind the things that I don't want. Like, you know, there's some things where I'm like, okay, we don't need to yell, you know, or hug after each other. That's my mother always said, don't hug after me. You know, it means don't yell. But you know,
yeah, I think that's definitely one worth chatting about with us too, like with raising kids and all of that.
Well, we're gonna take this to a different level and kind of competing against cultures. We're gonna stop and play a little game here.
I love a game.
I love a game.
The game is gonna be called What You Want, right? So I'm gonna give everyone two things, whether it be food, something cultural, and we're gonna see what gets the most participation. So.
Okay. Do we have to use our boards
again?
Yeah, we should use our boards.
We're gonna use our boards. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm just gonna.
You're gonna say A or B?
So yeah, I'm gonna do A and B. So just to make this simple. So,
okay.
All right, we're gonna kick this off. So number one.
I'm gonna flip that. Is it two-sided here?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah,
two-sided. A side and a B.
Oh yeah, good idea. All right, I'm gonna do that too.
Oh, we can just.
See?
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, and then we just.
You
flip
is
it back.
smart. You is kind.
You
is important.
Just love being in a room with professionals. Okay.
Yeah, I have brains. Wait, here you go. I have brains, girl. I have brains.
You're smart.
Yeah,
You're bright.
You're
bright. You're bright. Yeah.
That's the patois kills me.
All right. So first one, ackee and saltfish or shrimp and grits.
A is ackee and saltfish, and B is shrimp and grits.
I kind of want to do an A and B. What we should mix it up with.
Well, you have to pick one. You just said what the game is.
That's okay. And I can set the rules too. I'm gonna say A and B because we was in Jamaica a couple weeks and they put mackerel and ackee, and that made me feel like I'm empowered to mix it up. Mackerel and ackee. It took a little while, but
shrimp and grits.
I would say I want to try some ackee and shrimp.
No, sir.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Please. I don't know about it.
All right, we'll move on.
Shrimp and grits for me is all I gotta say.
Shrimp and grits is really good.
All right,
and I make a mean shrimp and grits.
You never made me none.
I'll make it for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a minute. All right, next one: rice and peas or mac and cheese.
A is rice and peas. B
A
is
is rice and peas. B is mac and cheese. I have to say A because I'm lactose intolerant.
That's true.
Wait, which one was mac and cheese?
Omar always has to have a separate.
B was mac and cheese. Yeah,
I love mac and cheese. But like, do you notice that there's a difference in like West Indian mac and cheese versus like
specify
black folk mac and cheese?
You're talking about soul food mac and cheese, right?
Alicia makes black folk mac and cheese.
I do.
She does a great job.
Because the West Indian mac and cheese, it's a
with
pie.
The peas in
very
it.
dense.
Macaroni pie.
Yeah, but
macaroni
we don't call
pie.
it macaroni pie. At least in Jamaica.
Because they're trying to make macaroni pudding.
The macaroni tough. Tough.
With vegetables in it. Why is vegetables in it?
So I do.
The patois just comes down.
I don't know about that. All right,
next one. Carnival or HBCU homecoming?
See, that's not fair though. I feel like that's not fair.
I'm gonna put a Howard homecoming.
I wasn't allowed to carnival. It was against God.
So I'm Howard homecoming.
Carnival is fantastic.
A and B.
I've never been.
But I can't say anything. I can't not pick homecoming. I went to Howard.
Howard homecoming.
I mean, HBCUs are great, and I went to HBCU homecomings.
All right, fantastic. I think we're Trick question. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, trick question. Dance hall or R&B slow jams?
I'm gonna go R&B. A on that.
I'm B. I'm R&B.
I'm gonna do B.
I'm gonna go A just because I love R&B slow jams, but a world without dance hall feels
like
sad.
I'm both. Like
we didn't say a
I'm
world.
both too, but we had to pick one.
We didn't say that.
I'm just saying if we have to pick one.
I'm rolling B.
Dance hall, but I wasn't allowed to listen to it.
I'd rather
listen to any of it.
I'd rather listen to.
Let's just go with A.
I'm weak. I'd rather.
It's not all R&B. It's just slow jams.
I love me some slow jams, so I guess I'm going with B.
That's the A. That's the A. That's what your parents.
I know. All right.
Hey.
Next question, please.
Ooh, final one. Callaloo or collard greens?
All right, we're on B. We're on collard greens.
Collard greens. I don't like callaloo.
I love callaloo, but I'm gonna only say collard greens because that was when I had that collard greens. I
That's
can't even
about to
speak. I'm
drool
thinking.
on
I
the
started
mic.
thinking about the food. I started thinking about the food.
Oohs
The
and
turkey
ahs.
necks.
Sponsors.
The
If you're in
turkey
DC, go to
neck.
Oohs and Ahs.
Turkey neck in your collard
On the
greens?
collard
Mhm.
greens.
Yeah.
Yes,
You done-
yes.
You done turkey.
Yeah, I don't
Smoked
like
turkey.
callaloo.
Why?
I don't know. There's just something about the way it tastes, and I think there's a little bit of
You about to
trauma
get
there from
canceled.
like eating
Needing
a lot of
to
it,
eat a lot of
growing
it.
up as
I
a
get
kid.
that. That happens. Too much of
Yeah,
a
I
good thing
just,
sometimes.
you know.
Not a good thing.
All right. Well, that was a fun game, y'all. I think we can wrap this episode up. I'm gonna kind of start with you, Brandon. What would you say is some advice you give to anyone that is introducing their partner to a new culture?
Oh wow. I gotta keep on being tired of me saying this word, but it's really grace and understanding. It so is. It's repeated, but just grace, understanding, patience, and do a recap afterwards when you get home about what you
I'll read
experienced.
Debrief.
A debrief.
I would say just have no expectations of the person. Like, don't make it performative. I think just allow the person to be themselves, and if they need a lifeline, you send one quickly. It can be interesting in a good way, hopefully.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be very technical, but game plan, map it out beforehand.
Facts.
Like, have a conversation about what are your relationship standards? Like, what do you agree to? What's the dynamic? Because if you can't determine that for yourself, you're going to end up in a situation where you got to make a snap decision. And I think it's better to get ahead of it and to know, like, are we the make me a plate type of couple or are we not? And so when you get into that environment, if it's tested, then you're both on the same page. And, like how you've been able to be an advocate for me and I've been able to be an advocate for you, you're set up for success in that way.
Yeah, for me, I just think about unit, like, what at the end of the day, what's core to what you're going home to, right? But I'll also say, and this is me speaking to old Omar a little bit,
not old Omar.
Yeah, old
coming out to
Omar a little
play.
bit, have no, seriously, but having grace, you know what I mean? And having grace in that introduction and that integration, but also just in yourself and the family, right? Because your experiences are not the same, and I introduced Aaliyah after going to Howard and all that stuff, right? Everyone was come from Jamaica, they came to Florida, right? And my world is a whole lot bigger than what they're looking at their world is. So, I would certainly encourage everyone to, have grace, have patience in navigating love. And, that's wrapping up episode 2. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Keep your shoes on, Aaliyah. That's the bonus tip.
Oh, that's the bonus tip. Keep your shoes on. Or if you don't, hey.
You're into that stuff.
Thanks for joining us as we celebrate love, family, and legacy across cultures.
There's always a seat for you at our table, so remember to like, share, subscribe, and give us your thoughts as we want to hear your stories.
Spreading joy, sending love. Thanks for joining us on the Callaloo and Collard Greens podcast.